This had better be important.
Yes, sir. The American agent has infiltrated the X-Lab facility.
Welcome back to the Funker 530 Combat Footage Review Show. I'm Ronnie, and I'll be your master of ceremonies tonight. It's good to see you. Tap on the like button, drop a comment in the chat. We're back. Happy Friday. What's going on? I know I had the date or the time set wrong because I did think we were going to start a little late, but we're here on time. I made it. What's up? Where's everybody at? Where are you chiming in from tonight? Hey, Norm, I see you, buddy. Smells like freedom in here. Hell yeah. Hey, yo, happy birthday. All right, it's not my birthday today. It is my birthday on Sunday. So we made it all the way here, actually, so I'll let it slide tonight. Thank you very much. Florida, what's going on? In from Kentucky, Florida on station again. Asheville, North Carolina, Tennessee. Conroe, Texas. I've never even heard of that place. That says Conroe, I think. Holland, what's up? Oklahoma, what's up? Colorado, North Dakota, everywhere. Dresden. All right, well, welcome in, everybody. Like I mentioned, happy Friday to you. You made it a whole week without being incarcerated. And if you are watching from jail, establish dominance quickly. I think that's the best way to kind of make your stay a little bit easier. Now, we're going to start tonight off a little bit differently than normal. Sometimes I say that, and then it essentially turns out to be the same thing. But I've kind of got an off-the-cuff thing to talk about tonight, and it's specific to Monday. Monday, August 26th, would be the third anniversary of the culminating event, in my opinion, of the fall of Kabul, the fall of Afghanistan. On Monday, on the 26th of August, 13 U.S. service members were killed defending Abbey Gate from essentially massive crowds of Afghans that were attempting to leave the country when a suicide vest clacked off in a canal. We have an extraordinary amount of footage from that event in its entirety, from the aftermath of that event. And that's not the footage that we're going to look at tonight. But in my opinion, from Josh and Will's perspective, from the writing team side of the house, I think that is some of the best work that they have ever done. Some of the most opinionated pieces, most certainly. But today we're going to talk a little bit about a lesser known video. Many people have seen this one, but I'm going to draw some attention to a couple frames. And I tweeted about this just prior to the start of the show tonight. Because it's something that lives kind of rent-free in my brain. One of the running themes and narratives that has continued to propagate is that Afghans didn't fight back, and I have continued to push back against that. All the way down at the soldier level, Afghans were absolutely fighting. We have footage and video of Afghans picking a fight with their superiors, pushing, shoving, throwing punches. And we also have footage of Afghan leadership leaving, That's not even to speak about our own leadership and the follies that came along with that. But the video I'm going to show you tonight, there's a hidden story in it, one that might not be evident. We're going to start things off with a very difficult to watch video. Discretion very heavily advised on this one. But it is effectively something that I just continue to think about for reasons that you might not think. Let's take a look at the footage.
نزنند ولی نزن چی میکنی یو نزنی میولی خواهش کن میولی یو
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about this video here. Let's talk about what you just saw. What you just saw was Afghan Special Operations Forces. I'm going to give you an anecdote here, and I'm going to pause right on this scene. My second deployment, we worked alongside Afghan partner forces known as Kitehas. Kitehas were effectively highly trained Afghan commandos, if you will, just to simplify things. A buddy of mine from that deployment sent us over this video, and he mentioned specifically, hey, I think some Kitehas just got executed. What you just saw were a group of Afghan commandos who, rumor has it, and this is all off the cuff, this is just me talking to you about a video that lives with me. The rumor is that these Afghan commandos, these Afghan SOF, had run out of ammunition. There are rumors of small pockets of Afghan Special Operations Forces running out of ammunition, fighting to the last bullet, and including, all the way down to hands and feet. But then ultimately, hoping to surrender. The Taliban were reporting across all of their propaganda channels that if Afghans surrendered, that even if, they were part of the ANA, even if they were previously United States and coalition partner forces, then they would be treated well. And the mainstream media was propagating that. They were effectively parroting the Taliban's propaganda. Well, this video got submitted to us, and it shows Afghan SOF surrendering, removing their plate carriers like you see here, ultimately to be mowed down in almost a firing line way, right? There is effectively a firing line. There's an embedded story in this, though, one that if you blink, you'll miss. And I'm going to take you through that. Right at the 19-second mark of this video, we have what I would consider to be the epitome of heroism. I want to point out this Afghan here. So this Afghan this commando had just removed his plate carrier. The firing line is immediately to the left of the screen here and wraps all the way around to our cameraman. As we continue down the path of frame by frame, there he is again, there's his plate carrier, there's his helmet. Frame by frame on this, we begin to see our Taliban firing line. But then we also see this commando charging that firing line with no weapon, no plate carrier, and going out with his boots on. This video lives with me because of that. Now, it's not something that overpowers the thought of the lost 13 U.S. service members. That is something I have met and considered Tyler Vargas Andrews a friend. I've gotten a chance to spend a lot of time with him. But it is something that I think about pretty regularly. And there is no real other point or reason for me showing you this other than to show you this man, this Afghan, who is the embodiment, in my opinion, of the fight that the Afghans at the lowest level had on the ground that nobody was giving them credit for. The Afghans folded. They didn't fight back. That is proof of the contrary. So we are on, again, as of Monday, the third anniversary of our generation's fall of Saigon, in my opinion. And this is something that just comes to mind pretty regularly. Let's bring it back up to the top. We'll hang out for a second and talk about what we're going to cover for the rest of the show. All right. Oh, first off, let me check in on the support over here. And thank you guys very much for it. Pontus, thank you for the $4.91. John, thank you for the $20. Happy birthday. Be sure to get your reservation at Applebee's. They'll be packed this weekend for Labor Day. Yeah, I'll be at a soccer tournament all weekend. So don't think I'll be going to Applebee's, but thank you very much for the 20. We appreciate that very much. Let's talk about what we're going to cover tonight. Tonight, we're going to have a very short Israel section. We'll see some very heavy footage from there, though, some discretion advised type footage. War is going to happen. We will have an Around the World segment where there's once again, things are going to get a little spicy tonight. Right, I started you off right out of the gate with something that's a little spicy, maybe a little gut-wrenching for, some of you, those of you that might have spent time in Afghanistan, and it will be a little bit of an up and down night. So once we get into Ukraine, though, that's what I really wanted to focus on from a discussion perspective. I'm only going to focus on 2 areas of Ukraine. We will see a little bit of footage elsewhere of things that I think have some gravity to them, but we're going to focus most specifically on Kursk in Russia, technically, although it's occupied by Ukraine, and Pokrovsk. So those 2 areas. Now, I could have also included Toretsk in there. Those 2 areas are where some of the heaviest fighting and the heaviest operations are taking place. So we have specific footage that we're going to focus in on for those 2 spots, and we'll spend a little bit more time in the map. I do want to get through the Israel section first, though. So let's get started with some of the footage that I thought was pertinent and important or cool from Israel. This very first one is really just an exhibition of air superiority from Israel. You're going to see F-35s and Apaches just putting in work. Oh, we'll be talking about it, Jeff. There's a reason I made that the thumbnail tonight.
קיבלתי. עכשיו גם פיצוץ משנה. עוד פיצוץ משנה גדול.
All right, let's bring it back up to the top. Now that just generally speaking was more air from Israel. I thought that one was interesting, largely because of the Apache footage, the Apache gun camera footage that we saw. That was the green video that you saw there. They were shooting down with, I want to say it's a 30mm cannon on the front of it, shooting down a Hezbollah drone, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to take you straight over to the West Bank, though, in Jenin. Let me jump over to the map and get you to Jenin in the West Bank, just for those like me who are a little bit geographically not inclined. So this is Jenin in the West Bank. There was an operation that took place, and discretion's advised on this one. There was an operation that took place to kill or capture Wassem Hazem, who's the Al-Qassam Brigade's commander for Jenin. Remember, the Al-Qassam Brigades is the militant wing of Hamas. There are still some that believe, that Hamas does not have a presence in the West Bank, and that would be absolutely incorrect. This video being evident of that. We got a series of views and perspectives on this one, though. So first, we're going to watch the IDF-provided drone view. You're going to see, effectively, the IDF counterterror team roll up on a vehicle. A gunfight ensues. 2 squirters. That is actually a term that's used by the military to describe individuals that run away. 2 squirters make their way away from the vehicle that the IDF were targeting, whom are then targeted by precision strikes. You're going to see all that in this footage. This is the IDF vehicle here, up at the top. This is the vehicle that contained Wassem Hazem and 2 additional individuals that have been described as being affiliated with Al-Qassam Brigades, each of whom were targeted by drone precision strikes afterwards. Start it back over from the beginning so you can see that all kind of unfold. You see they're still exchanging gunfire while these 2 have squirted out. They are exchanging gunfire. You can see rounds impacting the IDF vehicle and rounds impacting the Al-Qassam Brigade's vehicle as well. But I have a better perspective of you. I'm going to put you inside of the vehicle of the IDF. Here you are.
مخانيم ايه عصرنا دسور يرى
And let me walk you through, effectively the timeline here. So they get alerted that the vehicle's coming down the alleyway here. They pull in on it hard and fast. Gunfire right out of the gate. So right out of the gate, the IDF vehicle is taking rounds. They start putting their own. You can see them on the windshield here. It's not long after this gunfight starts that our two squirters make their way out the back of that vehicle. Really right away. They kind of folded like a lawn chair, if you will. Presumably, it's in this gunfight that Wassem Hazem was killed. Now, for the other two individuals they're targeting, I'm going to take you to CCTV, where at least this is where I actually have an interesting question, where at least one of those strikes was recorded. Here's what's interesting about this to me, is this is effectively the same location. If we were to pull up that last video, you would see both of these trees. You would also see on, from a signature perspective, whatever it is, these might be HESCOs of some kind. But what we don't see in the top-down IDF view is this individual running out into the street and then back the other direction. All we see on the IDF perspective is this portion of the run. Now, at some point, and we are going to go back up to the other video, I would assume that that individual dropped his weapon because he is carrying one. They both are when they exit the vehicle. Let's watch the drone view again. So he rounds the vehicle here. He is firing from a weapon right there. And so is this individual. So he was kind of backpedaling for a moment. This guy turns down this road here. The other guy keeps going straight. We jump to a different location, and this is that location we were just looking at. We have our tree. We have another tree here. But again, what we don't see is what happened just prior to here. And is this the same guy? Because, again, I look at everything with some level of skepticism. In this video, the pattern of movement is into the street and then back down the alley where he is struck. I found that to be interesting. I'm not drawing any conclusions based on that, but I think it's important to note that no matter who publishes the video, that's the same level of skepticism, not cynicism, that I typically will review it. And I shouldn't have even said typically, that I will. I just found that to be an interesting note, that we don't have that little small part of the top-down drone view. The last piece that I have for you is aftermath video of this strike. There you are. All right, let's bring it back up. Now I have one more video for you. Two. In Israel, before we move into the Around the World section, see some conflict footage from elsewhere. This is going to also take place in the West Bank. I can't give you an exact location because I don't know. But there is at least some likelihood that it is the same team, just given the markings on the video being the same as the last video. So there's at least some level of likelihood that it is also Jenin. Discretion advised on this. Although they might be difficult to see as we're watching, we will see 3 engagements close with targets visible. Again, war happens in this video. Discretion advised. The button didn't work. And just to give you a little bit more context, because I failed to do that, I was just making sure you were aware that 3 people were going to get killed in this video. This is Israeli border police, if I understand their term. Yeah, border police essentially rolling a counter-terror operation somewhere in the West Bank.
Look up! Look up!
So an individual was just engaged there, right next to that vehicle. That's the first. We'll see another in the house here. Sorry about your ears. And another is engaged here. All right, let's bring it back up. I do have one more for you from Israel. I found this one to be really interesting. This is going to be an Iron Dome interceptor. This is about 3 or 4 days old at this point, I want to say. About 5 days old. But what's interesting about this is this specific interceptor makes its way to an IDF ship and actually kills an Israeli sailor. Now, what's believed to have happened here is the IDF's Iron Dome interceptor was tracking a Hezbollah drone that was on its way towards the ship, and ultimately they arrived at about the same time. That's what's believed to have taken place here. Let's watch it one more time. There's some of the damage inside of the ship. So again, I haven't seen any confirmation type reporting on that. I think that that's more rumor than anything. That's not to say that the IDF hasn't come out with some level of a statement on this one. But all that I saw, I'm giving you the context that I could find, is that the interceptor was tracking the Hezbollah drone. They both arrived at the ship at approximately the same time. And that's how we ended up with an IDF sailor or an Israeli sailor killed. We're going to pause once again so I can jump over to the support, and thank you guys very much for it. Chad, thank you for the $10. Happy birthday, brother. I missed a lot of streams. That's all right. They'll continue. You swing back by here whenever you want, whenever you can, if you want to. The stream's free, but thank you very much for the $10. The Gaming Murph, thank you for the 10. I was there. I found out about Abbeygate through my parents. I was 2 miles away at Northgate, and my Command 1-8 didn't fucking tell us until 4 hours later. 4 hours later. Your command didn't tell you about the Abbeygate suicide attack until 4 hours later. I have spent a lot of time at HKIA, and the Northgate and Abbeygate are not far away. I'm willing to bet you would have been able to hear that, but that makes me a little bit angry, to be honest with you. I'm just being frank. You know, I'm not here to give you some kind of a well-crafted political take on that. I actually never have any notes for anything. It's just literally a list of videos. So that's something that's important that I need to make sure that I continue to cover. When we're talking about some of this stuff, this isn't, Tucker. This isn't going to be one of those political commentator type shows where they have a list of talking points that have been poured over and planned in advance. I have a list of videos for you, right? So when I say that pisses me off, that's just flat out what it does. There is absolutely no reason that your command shouldn't have let you know at the North Gate when Abbeygate was blown up within minutes of that. That's a forced posture problem. That's something that you needed to know about right away, especially with the quote unquote Taliban providing an inner cordon. No, Absolutely not. Let's move on, though. We're going to head to our Around the World section. So the Around the World section is really where I just pick a couple videos that are in conflict zones and war zones from around the world. We're going to be starting with Yemen, and I think this is actually archival type footage. We are a combat footage archive, not a news team. We do try to cover things as close to when they happen. That way some newsworthy information can be derived. But ultimately, even 30 years from now, when the Funker 530 team has changed out and there are new writers and they are still actively archiving all of the footage that's coming out of Ukraine, coming out of Israel, coming out of Sudan and Yemen, we will still be archiving based on the amount of footage. But what you're going to see here is the Houthis. Discretion advised. It is a self-recorded, well, here you are. Discretion advised. Oop. Something bit me. One more time. Oh. You can hear it. Again, that is the Houthis in Yemen. He essentially recorded himself taking a round to what sounds like the chest. You can actually hear the whiz of the bullet and the thud as it impacts him. But we are going to shift into the Red Sea. But we're still going to talk about the Houthis. The French have gotten involved. This is a video of the French essentially tracking and taking out a Houthi unmanned surface vessel. These USVs are absolutely wreaking havoc right now in the Red Sea. And I say that in a relative sense. They don't have that many of them, but they have shown success, largely because they are moving underneath of the radars that a lot of the modern naval capabilities that are in the Red Sea from the United States, the French, etc., are using. Right? It's a lot like anti-ship ballistic missile technology that skims the waterline. These USVs being right on the waterline there sometimes can be underneath of the, radar's visibility. But here's the French tracking it and destroying it.
Une barque suspecte sans personne à bord.
À bord 205. On note piste suspecte. R.
En fait, une embarcation téléguidée avec des explosifs qui se dirige droit vers la frégate. À 400 mètres, le commandant décide d'ouvrir le feu.
Allez, on s'éloigne de l'autre bord.
Puis l'embarcation explose quelques minutes après.
All right, let's bring it back up. I think I have two more from around the world. We are moving into what I would consider to be an oldie but a goodie. These are Iraqi tribesmen fighting back against ISIS. Now, this probably would have been circa 2016, maybe 2017, but they have an M249 and go cyclic with it, so that's fun. I love that his boy is driving for him and he's running the saw. Now, you might not be able to make that out, but there's a vehicle right here. But I'm a little tired. We'll have a nap. Then fires the missiles. That looks like a PK, though. I gotta turn that off. I don't know if that's copyright music. Look at that M4. Man, that thing's dope. It's got a CCO on it. Yeah, I got to keep the sound off there. All right, let's bring it back up. The last, extremely not safe for work. I mean, like discretion, very much so advised here. But there's a reason that I wanted to show this to you. The situation in Sudan still continues to be an active war zone, with the Syrian armed forces and the rapid support forces, Hemedi and his crew still very much going at it with each other. Also, another area where the proliferation of drones is absolutely making an effect on the battlefield. What you're going to see here is the Sudanese armed forces. Did I say Syrian armed forces? Excuse me. Sudanese armed forces drone targeting a fuel truck where there are troops nearby. RSF, Rapid Support Forces troops. What gets a little bit weird with the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF deal is Wagner was historically supporting the RSF. There was a reason Ukraine was in Sudan targeting Wagner and RSF. But Russia has started providing at least monetary and equipment support to the Sudanese armed forces, largely because they're trying to schmooze, align their policy with Iran, who has historically supported the government, so Sudan's armed forces, but also to continue working towards their ultimate end goal, which is a naval port in Port Sudan. So anyway, this one gets a little weird. It's a little bit of a gray area. There are technically still Wagner providing support to the RSF, if I understand correctly, but Russia, from an official capacity, is also supporting the Sudanese armed forces. Don't quote me on that. That's just my understanding of the current context. I'm happy to be corrected. Here's the video. Discretion advised. And there goes the mortar. It's going to land bing bong right in the corner of that fuel truck and just ignite everything in there. Everybody's just kind of watching this guy that's on fire, and then okay, there we go. We haven't gotten there yet, Pit Boy. Relax. All right, let's bring it back up. I'm going to pause here for a moment because we're about to shift into some of the footage that I thought was pertinent, interesting, relevant, and that has a little bit of gravity to it coming out of the war in Ukraine. But to pause, I want to make sure that we're checking in on the support that you guys continue to send across, which is wholly unnecessary, and thank you very much for it, though. From John Maxwell, thank you for the $5. Would highly recommend everyone listen to the interview of Ahmad Massoud by Sean Ryan. Very, very good one. Do recommend also myself. Very informative about the ongoing Afghan resistance. Do go and watch that. If you haven't yet, it will help bring you a little bit up to speed on, kind of what's continued to happen since the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan. The U.S. et al. Pulled out of Afghanistan. Mr. Naughty One, thank you for the $5. Thank you, boss, for the awesome context. Also, the Funker 530 site is badass. I'm going to pause here, first of all, and say thank you for the $5, but I also need to make a note about something. We're receiving a lot of feedback, right? Most of it, an overwhelming amount of it, very positive on the changes that we put in place for the Funker 530 site. A lot of people that do have negative comments, most of those comments are around, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Well, what you might not know is it was broke. It had been operating off of a decades-old framework, one that was not scalable whatsoever. So what we had to do is we ultimately had to update it to a more modern framework. Now, we're still finding users that have issues either in-app or on the mobile site using relatively old devices, so like 2015 devices, which include like the iPhone 8. But there's not much that we can do about that. The reason that there's not much that we can do about that is we used a new framework that is effectively the direction that the web is moving to. It's called React. That framework isn't supported on those older devices, but we didn't write the framework. The framework itself just provides essentially the structure for us to put the website over top of. So there are a litany of things that we're trying to do. We're trying to roll small lifestyle fixes, or I should say user operability, user experience fixes to see if we can mitigate that as much as we can. But ultimately, there comes a time that we just have to bring the website to a more modern age. And that's what we wanted to do with this. It also looks cooler. I like it. When all the features and functions work properly, it's better. If those are broken for you, I'd recommend updating the app first and foremost, or, understanding that a lot of people are in different situations and might not be a possibility, consider upgrading your device, updating it with a newer model. So I'm going to pause there, check in on the chat before we continue. Happy birthday, Ryan. Not my birthday today. It is my birthday this weekend, though. Yeah, you actually got me this time. Get a haircut, birthday boy. I don't think I need a haircut. Is it bad? Oh, it's a little long. Yeah, we're getting a little long here. That's fine. It's not bad, though. Richard, thank you for the 50 Canadian. How'd you get your hands on the AT4 in your room? That's a long story, but that is what that is. Yes. And it was at one point actually HE. It wasn't like a test model. We'll do an anecdote. So in the US, you have color-coded bands. This is now inert. It's been fired. The black and yellow band typically denotes high explosive, anti-tank. If it was yellow, only yellow, that would be used for field training, handling training. Then you also have no band. So the no band, so there'd be nothing here. Those are the 9mm that have a piece in the back of it that you put a 9mm tracer round in, and it trains people to use the AT4. So at one point, this thing was used, but I picked it up at a local gun shop for a couple $100 because they were closing down. Let's move on to the Ukraine footage, though. We're going to be, as I mentioned, focusing very specifically on two areas in Ukraine, starting with, I want to say, Kursk. Yeah, I have us starting in Kursk. Before we get there, though, I wanted to chat about something. There's a narrative that's going around right now. I chose the thumbnail specifically for a reason. Again, I'm not your news anchor with your prepared talking points. That's just not what I want to do, and I don't care. I don't care what your flavor of whatever is that you want to impress on other people. An F-16 was finally lost in Ukraine, and I say finally because it was going to happen eventually, and might as well have happened now. The circumstances that F-16 were lost are a little bit interesting, though. Russia launched one of its largest barrages of missiles, drones, and otherwise into Ukraine that the F-16s were employed against. Zelensky, I believe, if not one of his either cabinet members or heads of organizations, acknowledged that F-16s were used against that massive swarm of cruise missiles, drones, etc. An F-16 was lost in the process of that. Now, Ukraine has effectively said that it crashed. Well, there is information that's coming to light that it might have actually been shot down by a Patriot. And the reason effectively being intercommunications, whether it could be, and this is speculation, whether it is a signature thing or something else. I'm not entirely certain, but you will find plenty of arguments in both directions of that. What I think is the most important takeaway from this is that it is military equipment, and military equipment is lost in a combat zone. That's what you get with multi-domain warfare. It's just going to happen, right? So people pointing at this as some kind of a linchpin into the greater overarching picture in Ukraine as, look, it was lost, it's not doing anything. That's not correct. To say that it wasn't a large loss, there are only so many F-16 trained pilots and F-16s available, which is just simply put a better platform than what else Ukraine is running, MiG-29 Fulcrums at best. It's a better platform. So its loss will be felt because there's something like 6 or 10 of those currently there. But to point at it and say that it is effectively the last straw that will either, you know, cause the implosion of Ukraine or, you know, something along those lines is really naive and kind of stupid. So I did want to talk about that. There's a reason that I made the thumbnail what I did. You know, that's just my thoughts on it. Unscripted, unprepared, just right out of the gate. Let's move to Kursk, though. We are going to start here, right on the edge of the forward line of troops in Kursk. Where we will have Ukrainians. 2 videos specifically. I want to say that they are successive of each other. Ukrainians dropping drones on Russian positions. Here's your footage. I don't choose a lot of drone footage, but when it's really high definition like this, I think it's valuable to an extent. Got to keep the sound off again. Just based on the amount of music that's overlaid, we've dealt with copyright problems repeatedly, just in an attempt to showcase all the different footage that we're finding. We're gonna. I had 2 videos, so let's reel things in. I used to put our video list in the stream description. I stopped doing that because YouTube would oftentimes make me truncate that. So you can now find the full video list without any truncation that's been applied to it over on Twitter. So our Twitter is what is most active, I would say, on our social media platforms. We have kind of regenerated some old school things here on YouTube. If you didn't notice that we published a top 10 raw footage video earlier today, it's not going to be the top 10 in views, but from a context perspective, we think that it is quite very much a top 10. Because there's not overlaid music. We have combat sound. These are multiple locations that we're covering from multiple perspectives. It is effectively an editor's pick of some of our favorite videos. And it won't always be 10. I want to say this week's is like 7. So those will be uploaded on Fridays every week, sometime in the morning. Then we have the stream where we can talk about some of that footage. I want to say a couple of those videos I'm going to show you tonight. But that's one of the things that we've added to the social media output from us. Another is, of course, the edited videos. So we published our trip that we did up to Aquino, Tank Weekend. If you want to see Funker and myself driving around in tanks, me competing in a tank battle against somebody else, that's available for you to watch right here on YouTube as well. But for those of you that haven't seen Funker in a while, he was there with me, and we both delivered a interview with the World of Tanks crew at the end of that stream, and that parts of that are in the video as well. Anyway, let's move to these next strikes that I have here. These are Russian strikes on Ukrainian positions at this location. So we're still in the same general vicinity here. We just watched some drone drops. I want to say those were up here. These are going to be Russian airstrikes. And this is all within the last week. I do have one example of something tonight that wasn't within the last week, but it is new footage and it is American equipment. So I like to cover that. Here's the Russian airstrikes on Ukrainian positions. Why are the sheep arguing about sides? This isn't a sides debate stream. It's a video archive stream. I don't know. I don't care. I have my opinions. But I do my best, and everybody's human, right? I do my best to not necessarily have those reflected in everything that I do, right? I also don't make my entire online identity about those opinions. You know, as an American, I have a multitude of things that I pay attention to and keep pressure points on, right? Yes, the war in Ukraine is absolutely impactful. Is it the most impactful thing to myself and my family right now? Not necessarily, right? From an emotional connection perspective, I think that there are a lot of people extremely emotionally vested in the war in Ukraine, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. But ultimately, the impact of that on you and your way of life here in the United States is, relative to some of the local problems that you probably have that you don't even know about, slim to none. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be generally supportive of Ukraine and their fight against Russia, who invaded them without really any justifiable cause. But I think that there is a devoid that we're in opinion, and I said I wasn't going to go there. I think that too many people separate themselves entirely from community, from local government, from their own government, effectively in support of things happening abroad, right? So we are an international community. I'm kind of saying that as an American. We ourselves have supported international efforts from a humanitarian aid perspective. But I do see a lot of people extremely emotionally invested that from, my perspective is really going to be detrimental to, being able to move forward with life. I don't want to dive too far down in that. And I probably went further than I think I should have. But let's move on. Move into Kremanoia. This one's interesting. I don't know what's going on in this one, guys. So there's an argument to be made one way or another that this is either a Ukrainian or a Russian tank. I don't know which one it is. It's moving from west to east. This is a gray area. So there's going to be raids taking place from Ukrainian-held territory into this Russian-held territory, or into this gray area, and there's going to possibly be the same coming from Russia. There is, what is this? The 1009th, that's so high. The 1009th Motor Rifle Regiment could very well be conducting raids themselves from west to east here. It all boils down to the logo that's on the vehicle. That logo is a filled-in triangle. Let's watch the footage, though. Going to try and pause it on the logo right there. So there's a filled-in triangle there. Now, a filled-in triangle we've seen on Russian T-72s, and in fact, if you were to go and you were to pull out this specific video, you would find, in our stream description, you would find a multitude of people saying, look, this is a Russian vehicle. We see these Russian vehicles with filled-in triangles on them. You're also going to find Ukrainian vehicles that have triangles on them. Most of them that I have seen have been hollow triangles, more upside down, I think, but also filled in as well. There's going to be situations and cases where this could be a captured vehicle that hasn't been rebranded in some way. This is one of those instances where it is so inconsequential whether it is a Ukrainian vehicle or a Russian vehicle that the bickering and back and forth is just not conducive to really anything. Understanding that war is politics. It is the ultimate form of politics, and it is the biggest affront that you can levy upon someone. So even going back to what I said earlier about people getting emotional about it. Again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is sometimes people disregard some of the problems that are existing right in front of their face for problems that are absolutely problems that we should focus on that are happening elsewhere. So when we're going back and forth for 6 hours on videos like this, was it a Ukrainian tank? Was it a Russian tank? It is a tank in a combined arms war zone. Vehicle losses are going to happen. It might be one notch in one or the other. To be honest with you, based on the information that's on the video, it's impossible to tell. How much does it matter, though? Right? Looking at it devoid of emotion, looking at it very objectively. It is a tank. It was destroyed. I'll show you that part. Oh, we'll see some Bradleys getting hit here in a little bit, John. All right, let's bring it up. We are going to see some air footage. This is published by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense directly. Now, yes. So we have actually already seen different footage of each of these strikes. So this is new footage, though, and it is a little bit more high definition. It also shows the equipping of JDAM-ER on MiG-29s. Now, not a lot of people believe that Ukraine had that capability when it first happened, but Ukraine effectively retrofitted their MiG-29s to be able to take Western arms like the JDAM-ER. The first strike takes place here. There is another bit of gravity to this that I'll talk about in just a second. The second strike here, we've seen each of these already, but again, this is relatively new footage of each of these strikes. Effectively, this means that Ukraine is continuing to have at least some level of freedom of maneuver to get air-delivered munitions into Kursk. So, air still contested. Here is the new footage, and I'll refresh you on last week's footage here in just a second. Straight from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. All right. Bringing it back up. That strike was reported as MLRS. I'd have to go back and check my notes for that, which I can pretty easily do. But I think for that one, at least when I showed this video to you guys last week, it was I had called it air, because the unitary warhead, which is what the MLRS, so M31A1. I always get those mixed up between the M30A1 and the M31. Which one's the unitary? Which one's alternative warhead? The alternative warhead. The unitary warhead wouldn't have that much ass behind it. I'll tell you why. These 4 holes here were made by the unitary warhead. This last one was JDAM. That's a JDAM. That's unitary warhead. The accuracy of those is the giveaway. This is HIMARS. That's not. How long am I timed out for? Stretch, you're not timed out. All right. Now we're moving into what I would call the general Kursk section. This means that I know it happened. I know it happened in Kursk, or at least we have some information telling us it happened in Kursk. But Largely, don't know exactly where. This one's interesting. This is a Bushmaster MRAP that supposedly the drone that's being flown here. We'll just watch the footage for a moment. Flies it right into the grill there. There's a really good representation of that Ukrainian triangle. Note that it is not all the way filled in. But according to the report, this was one of those drones that is cable flown. So fiber optic cable is effectively what's controlling it to mitigate the threat of electronic warfare being used to mitigate the threat of the drone. Obviously, no way for me to tell whether or not this actually has a fiber optic cable running out of the back of it, but that is the report that we have on it. That drone was wire guided. Yep. Tow drone. Yeah, kind of. More or less. All right, let's come back up. Speaking of electronic warfare, though, this is going to be a Ukrainian strike in Kursk on a Russian EW system of some kind. Exactly what type of EW this is, I can't be certain. Could be jammer. I don't know. Could be in receive mode. News reporter? Well, I mean, they're loading a bunch of dudes in, military gear into that truck. So, don't think so. Let's move on. Winnie the Pooh, thank you for the $10. Will you be my uncle? What? No, I don't want to. I'd ask if you'd be my dad, but he's pretty awesome. Thanks very much for the $10. Old Cold Warrior, thanks for the sub. CJ, thank you for the 10. Ronnie, thank you for always keeping it about the footage. Carry on, mi hermano. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the $10. And Christopher, thank you for the $1.36. Happy anniversary. Huh? Well, our anniversary is coming. I'll be 14 years I've been married to the missus, I think. Hope she's not watching. Because I think it's 14. Let's move on. This is an interesting one. Don't know exactly where it takes place in Kursk. But, for some of this stuff, there might be some good geolocations for. In the process of me, combing through 200-300 videos earlier today, I might not have been able to find it. But this is going to be a part of the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk, where a Ukrainian tank effectively looks like it kind of shrugs off a Lancet.
Левую сторону зачищай. Левую зачищай.
Ukrainians barely have trucks left. Logistics getting tough. We're literally watching a video of Ukrainian tanks. Bing bong. See what these look like. Nope. Wow. I don't know what that was.
Пішли. Ну, лага до нас. Ліву сторону. Димон, блядь, сука, твоя нога. Пулемет,
Boom.
Ліво, ліво. Мішку підбили! Давай, давай.
Я знаю, працюй, ти можеш працювати, працюй. Ти можеш працювати.
Залізли.
Давай нахуй! Хлопчики, давайте, беремо право,
So there's some possibility there that that vehicle is, at this point, probably a mission kill. And for some of this stuff that kind of ends like that, I always wonder what happens to it sometime later, whether they, you know, dump some thermite down inside of it to just destroy it, or if they leave it there, or if it was towed back and repaired. And now, dependent upon what happened to the power pack, I would say that, you know, if the power pack is still intact, the rest of it can really be repaired. But let's move on from that one. We've got some footage of HIMARS here. This is reported to be HIMARS, and what looks like unitary warhead HIMARS hitting pontoon bridges over the same river. All right, let's bring it up. Pretty sure we watched it like 4 times. But with thermal footage, you know, I just kind of stare at it because it all looks the same even when it starts over. But this is reported to be, I don't know, you tell me which pixel you can glean something from. This is reported to be, and is released officially by the Russian Ministry of Defense, a HIMARS somewhere in Kursk. Well, it might not have been Kursk. This might be, oh, well, yeah, they're calling it Kursk. We'll talk about that here in a second. But this is reported to be a HIMARS being destroyed by a Russian cruise missile. Or, yeah, Iskander. Here you go. It's definitely MLRS, right? I wouldn't say the signature is unlike HIMARS. This signature is very, very clearly like an MLRS. Could very, very well be a HIMARS. I don't know. Ballistic missile. That's the term I was looking for there. Brain didn't want to match words to thoughts. Very accurate. If you look around here, you've got what I think is probably primary frag from that. See that? That's definitely a HIMARS. Could be. Yeah, I don't know. Could be Smerch. I don't know, man. It was claimed to be HIMARS. That's what I'm giving you. And it's most certainly some form of a multiple launch rocket system. You can see it ready to fire there. It doesn't show it firing, though, which I find interesting. Here's the interesting piece to that, though. Why... HIMARS is an extremely capable system, right? So if it is HIMARS, again, I'm not saying it's not. If it is HIMARS and it was destroyed in Kursk, why the hell is it in Kursk anyway? At a bare minimum, you have something like a 70-kilometer range on GMLRS. There's absolutely zero reason for it to be in Kursk. Not to say that they can't use it in Kursk. In my opinion, if I give you a rifle and say, hey, you're in a war with your neighbor, here's a rifle, you use that rifle however you deem fit, right? That's your problem now. You know, however you want to use it. If your neighbor then comes and gets an attitude with me, I'm going to smack him in his mouth. Things aren't that simple, but why roll HIMARS into there? It's a very, very capable system, and you are putting that very close to the front. Ukraine has historically found success keeping HIMARS away from the front. Firing, moving, disguising itself, HIMARS has been lost. But having it in Russia that close to the front when, to be honest with you, it wouldn't need to be there to be able to still reach Kursk, I find to be interesting. That leads me to believe that this either isn't a HIMARS or it didn't take place in Kursk. Could very well be somewhere in Sumy, somewhere in Kharkiv. But it being in Kursk is what makes that interesting. Let's move on. We're moving into Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is one of multiple areas where Russia is actively gaining quite a bit of ground. Let's head down there right now. Well, first we'll start here. Ukraine has begun conducting mandatory evacuations in Pokrovsk.
Або
I don't speak Ukrainian, but from what I understand, they are announcing mandatory evacuations.
Тривають обмеження комендантської години з 15 по 11 годину. У зв'язку з цим заборонено перебувати на вулицях та в інших громадських місцях у зазначений період часу. У зв'язку
All right, let's bring it back up. Now, we're going to focus in on certain areas, starting with Novohorodivka. Novohorodivka? Novohorodivka. Here. Let's head over there on the map. And we'll take a look at... Stand by. Paste. Thank you. Here we go. So this yellow, or excuse me, it's not even close to yellow. This area along the Avdiivka axis, which we've really covered and talked about for quite some time, is about, what is this, 542 kilometers squared. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time here for the first couple videos. This first video takes place in the town of Novohorodivka. So it's probably, I don't know, about a week old, maybe a little bit longer. And it shows a Ukrainian tank being tracked by what was reported to be an RPG. The hell? That's not the right video. But I can pull it up for you. We'll pause once again, talk amongst yourselves. And I'll check in on the support while we're doing it. Tristar1, thank you for the $10. Jiggy5166, thanks very much for subscribing. Appreciate that. Lutterworth, thanks for becoming a member. Winnie the Pooh, thanks again for that $10. All right, we're already there. There's Horodivka. Here is Novohorodivka. Video is coming up for you guys now. In Novohorodivka, Ukrainian tank being tracked by what is reported to be an RPG. Right in these trees here. See its track dangling out of the back of it. So RPG means that that's going to have, I mean, there are things that you can infer from that. That means that there is line of sight to Russian infantry to that vehicle. If it was, in fact, an RPG, which there's some level of likelihood. It took place in this clump of trees here. So a hit from an FPV drone, they would have had to thread a needle. Not saying it's not possible, just saying it reduces the likelihood of that being a FPV drone. There's some, and it's the opposite track, so that means that, you know, came from maybe one of these buildings here, maybe in this tree line. Not sure. Well, you'll see the crew dismount here, or at least certain members of the crew. One, two moving. Didn't quite see a third. That was a Ukrainian tank tracked by an RPG. We have footage of Russian infantry here assaulting this building. Again, some of this a little bit dated. So a week, maybe 2 weeks old. Coming up now. There is copyright music overlaid with this. bring it back up. John, thank you for the $5. Did a triple take when I saw that Russians had taken New York. And then I learned that there's a New York, Ukraine. Yes, New York, Ukraine. Let's move on to, move north to Hrodivka. So not far, but we're moving to here. Hrodivka. So Novo Hrodivka and Hrodivka. We have Ukrainian strikes from the 71st Jaeger Brigade. I guess we're not quite all the way up to Hrodivka yet. Taking place there. Videos coming up for you. Here you are. Steve, thank you for the 20. See some D Pick'em involved here at one point. There it is, right there. That's that dual-purpose improved conventional munition cluster. That's what that is. Now we're moving to some footage of what I believe is a Bradley. So this Ukrainian vehicle is going to unload personnel and then make its way towards, and I believe it is down this line here, down this line of trees, towards the Russian front and start engaging with its chain gun. That video is coming up for you now. If you can't tell, I turned the chat into members only mode. That's because you can't be nice and I can do what I want. So here's the footage. 151st is an interesting one too. So there was a few photos that I tweeted out earlier that showed the 151st with effectively brand new 122 millimeter ammunition and charges for their 2S1 mobile artillery. What's interesting to me is that it was, when I say brand new, I mean manufacture dates from May of 2024, just this year. So that means in 122 millimeter for the 2S1 is a Soviet-era munition, Soviet/Russian munition. And it was all written in English. That means that somebody is producing that for Ukraine, and from a contractual perspective, putting English markings on it. One of the things that was interesting to me, and forgive me if that wasn't, groundbreaking for you, I just find interest in some of the nuance here. One of the interesting pieces of information that came out, or that continues to be talked about, is that Ukraine can't get, Soviet-era munitions, Soviet or Russian-type munitions, everything from 152 millimeter to 122 millimeter, etc. For them to have, freshly manufactured 122 millimeter that was made this year, I just found that to be interesting. I'm not drawing a conclusion across a broad scale of an entire war, an entire conflict, and that has so much more nuance that you can get from one tweet or one video. I'm not drawing anything from that. I just found it to be interesting. Let's move on. We have a Ukrainian tank engaging danger close right here. And when I say danger close, I mean this is like smell and distance. Coming up for you guys now. Thanks for becoming new members, guys. I appreciate that. That wasn't really the purpose of it, I do appreciate, you doing that. Really, the purpose of it was if you want to keep talking shit, now you got to pay me to. And that's cool. Again, very, very close. There. The tank is right here. And it's just banging on these houses. Patriot James, thank you very much for the 5 gifted. Strange Animal, thanks for gifting 1. Let's bring back up. Let's see what we got here. New member, Mushy, Pino, Brian, Vitali. Stain, thank you for the 7 months of membership. Thanks, guys. Again, Patriot James, thanks for gifting 5. Those went to Mystical Goat, Saroja Chef, John Coggs, Fuse the whole team, and just another white guy. Welcome to the Funkers, guys. All right, let's move to not pronouncing that. I'm not pronouncing that at all. I'll try. Maximilianivka. Maximilian. Maximilianivka. I think I nailed it. Specifically this location here. Where we have a Russian column that was attempting to make its way towards Kurakova, which I would consider to be a part of really the same front when you look at it across a broad scale. Now, if you begin to move down into, the operational scale, this could very well, if you look at the groupings of troops, this is very much probably treated as a separate operation for Russia, just kind of collated it as a part of the Pokrovsk push. But you're going to see a Russian column just getting absolutely dismantled by Ukrainian FPV strikes. Here you are. Welcome back, everybody. Still quite a bit more footage for us to get through tonight. All right, let's bring it up from that one. Now, this is a bit of footage that is very, very likely relatively dated. And when I say relatively, I only mean back to like maybe the end of July, early August. But it does show an Abrams. The reason I'm going to conclude that this is dated is because it takes place here, well behind the forward line. I don't know why we're jumping back up this way. I don't know why I didn't just cover that. So, pretty far off where the current stabilized flat, I shouldn't say stabilized, where the currently known forward line of troops, generally speaking, is. But, again, it shows an Abrams. And I always try to cover when U.S. or Western gear is used. Here's the footage. Another lone Abrams. Sin for Rent. Thank you very much for the 5 gifted there. Coming up. Now, I still have plenty more to cover from Ukraine. The first is going to be fresh footage, coming fresh out of Belgorod. This is reported to be a Ukrainian missile rocket. I'm not sure. I always get that mixed up too. You would think that as somebody who like handles foreign materiel, that I would be smarter. Nobody said I was smart. This is a rocket that fell in Belgorod and, according to Russia's reports, killed all of the occupants. The hell are they listening to? Note the date, bottom right corner. Check the impacts here again. All right, coming back up. Moving into, I don't know why we're jumping back up on the map, all the way up into Sumy, but we are, where another bridge was destroyed. I talk about bridges when they get taken out a lot, right? Because I think the gravity for those might not be something that at face value is evident, but it is very much so important to protect the avenues that you're going to move from a logistics perspective. One of the big issues with Pokrovsk is it is a rail hub. There are multiple railways that run through Pokrovsk. There are a lot of people very concerned about Russia's pressure on Pokrovsk. But that's also one of the reasons I wanted to make sure and show the map, show the footage of that. I do want to note kind of where Pokrovsk is relative to where Russia is. You know, this stream isn't really meant to be what's the current status of things going on in Ukraine. For a little while, it started feeling like that, and that wasn't the intent behind it. But I do think that it's important to kind of show from a footage perspective across a broad scale what we think is representative of the situation on the ground. That's ultimately been what this show is supposed to be for. Anyway, here is the current line of advance from Russia on the far right here. And then there is Pokrovsk. People talk about like high ground and stuff like that. I don't know if they've mentioned that about Pokrovsk specifically. But from a relative perspective, there isn't a lot of high ground in this area. A lot of that was coming up with respect to Zaporizhia, which is also very, very flat. You know, the differences in elevation across like 500 kilometers is like 30 meters. It's not a lot. But people would look at a map and, a heat map. Look, it's high ground. It's like, yeah, well, that high ground is 1 meter higher than the other stuff around it. Anyway, Pokrovsk, there is value. A lot of rail runs through that. Both Ukraine and Russia very heavily use rail. We see videos of Russia moving their equipment all the time. We've watched footage of strikes from Russia on Ukrainian rail here. So Pokrovsk is one that we'll keep focusing on specifically as Russia continues to kind of inch their way forward there. Where were we headed? Oh, we were headed up to Sumy, where we were talking about bridges, and I ended up in Pokrovsk. This is probably why people have scripts and not just a list of 70 videos that they go over. Moving. That is geocoordinates. Why did I Google the geocoordinates? Here's the bridge location in Sumy. Now, from a support perspective, that is a bridge that you would theoretically use or would be used to move. If you look at this kind of major supply route that you have here, this bridge would very well be used to move equipment and logistics into whatever this is. Is this Sumy proper? Is that what that is? But, this would theoretically be a staging area that actively used. So that this is probably a hit. Let's take a look at the bridge being hit/destroyed. I don't recall if it was obliterated or coming up now. Ow! Oh yeah, it's gone. Yeah. Jerry, thank you very much for the $10. Great analysis and narration. I wouldn't even call it analysis. Narration might be appropriate. There are times that I might dip into, some thoughts that start to get close to analysis, but I actually specifically avoid doing any analysis. But thank you very much for the $10. Need to check in on more of the support, guys, and thank you again for it. The stream's free, 100% free. Any monetary thing that you guys do for the stream is all above and beyond. Well, we don't expect it, don't ask for it. We appreciate it very much. We're a small team. Sometimes at face value, the Funker 530 team is, it's so large, right? We have such a large footprint. I think it's important to note that, we're still a very, very small team, very agile team. There are 7 of us now. We did get an editor on board direct. He's been helping out a lot. His name's Ian. You'll hear me talking about Ian quite a bit. We scaled with 2 more writers this year, so Cam and Cole. Will and Josh being the senior most. Then you have me. This is kind of an extra duty, if you will. Then you have Scott. You have Funker. So that's the team in its entirety. So still very small team. John, thanks again for the $5. Thoughts on whether or not Belarus becomes more involved in the war? No, I don't have thoughts on that. I don't know. Yeah, I could try and give you some fluff here, but there would be no substance to it whatsoever. I'd have to spend some time and think about that. But thank you for the $5. Patriot, thank you for the $5. Hey, Ronnie, me love you long time in a Viking way, of course. I don't think that makes that any better. I don't think it makes it any different. I feel like it's the same, which is great. Thank you. Thank you for the $5. I love you too. Welcome to Costco. Toretsk. So this is another area. Very, very active offensive operation for Russia. Headed there now. The Toretsk area, I should say. So from a landmass perspective, 169.48 kilometers. Okay. Just want to double check something here. The Pokrovsk area, 542.77 kilometers. Stand by. Because I know it's on your brain. I know it's on your brain. And this is UA control map. So this area is 1,075.88 kilometers squared. But moving back to Toretsk. here. This is a Ukrainian Bradley. It's going to be footage of a Ukrainian Bradley supporting Ukrainian ground troops in an operation just outside of Toretsk. Yes. Sorry. Here you are. Just another white guy. Thank you for the $5, sir. I remember the first night this show started when the war kicked off, February 24th, 2022. It's been cool to see what it's evolved into. Thanks, Ronnie and Funker team. Thanks for being here. Nothing's perfect, man. You know, I don't want to be your news anchor. But there's also a part of me that also really, really thinks that there is value to attempting to present information as objectively as possible on video. There is too much of an expectation that people have with respect to bias that don't truly understand what the word bias means. Everybody is biased. You can still be biased and review things objectively. I myself have my biases. You do. Under most circumstances, when you're screaming, and one of you is probably watching right now that is going to get frustrated with this, so it's targeting you. When you're screaming, show more Russia footage, that's your bias, right? So in the process of accusing others of their bias for not showing your favorite team, you are presenting your bias, right? But the objective review is something that I think I have been successful in from a presentation perspective. There are times that we've had more Ukrainian footage. There are times that we had more Russian footage. By and large, I think there's a universal truth, though. Russia started it, and they need to get out of Ukrainian lands. But again, that is not how I base the stream. That's not how I base what we do here. It's very much so, let's find the footage that depicts or helps us understand the situation that's going on the ground. And if you can't see past, my opinion, my bias into the objective nature that I present the information, that's on you, and you don't have to watch. Moving on. This is an interesting one. I don't know where this takes place, but the Bradley reactive armor tiles seem to have deployed on this one. So this is a Bradley, and it looks just absolutely chewed up. But the Brat tiles that were previously placed here, so there would have been Brat tiles there. You'll note that they are still on the other side. You just get a quick glimpse of them over there. Right here. Those Brat tiles are explosive reactive armor. You'll see them on the front there as well. There's more Brat tiles. And according to the Post, according to the information that we have, the crew did survive because of the Brat tiles. We've also seen footage of a Bradley that just had like a hole through it, like just straight through it, and it was driving down a dirt road. Country roads. Some interesting footage here. Ukrainian MiG-29 destroying a Russian drone. Boof. Where'd the barrel go? Probably pulled it. I don't know. I would suspect that you can replace the barrels. Right, they're interchangeable. I've seen them shipped without barrels in them. I know a Bradley gunner. I could probably reach out to him. Okay, this one's weird. Yeah, this one's real weird. Ukraine hitting a Bradley with 2 FPV drones. 2 different videos inside of one video here. And in the video edit, the editor put in that it was a BMP-1, but it's totally a Bradley. Like you're absolutely hitting a Bradley. Let's watch the video, and then I'll give you my thoughts that I cannot prove. It is what it is. Here's the video. So that was into the crew compartment there. That's not the vehicle that is. That's Bradley. Blue on blue, technically, yes. That's what we're seeing here. Now, the why is, I'm gonna speculate on the why here because this is crazy. So, again, this Ukrainian video is calling out that it's this vehicle, which, what is that, a BMP-1, which is not that vehicle. It's a Bradley. And this was calling it an entirely different one. This is saying it's, what is that, a BTR? Here's what I think is going on here. So, the crews that are on the ground recording this, they're not the ones editing it. Not even in the slightest. That's a speculation. I don't know that, but it's just kind of logical. Makes sense. What I think we're seeing here is there's probably some like central drive where the 69th drone warriors upload their stuff to, right? Then an editor goes in there and is like, oh, this one's dope. Pulls it down, kind of makes some inference, maybe adds some sexy stuff to it, releases that out on Telegram. I think whoever edited this for them added all of that extra shit. And what we're likely seeing here is what's known as like asset denial. So the Ukrainians are hitting this thing to remove it from operability, right? So they then upload that footage to the magical cloud drive. You'll have to get your definition of the cloud from Kamala. You know, it's up there. They move it up to a cloud drive, and the editor pulled it down. Was like, oh, it looks like a destroying a Russian vehicle. Added all that extra shit. Let's flip the coin over for a second. Always keep one foot inside of the red team analysis on it. The other option is that it was just poorly made propaganda and that enough people are going to believe that it was a Russian vehicle when in fact it wasn't. The chances of that aren't zero, right? They're not high, but the chances of that also aren't zero. It's definitely Ukrainians. They're definitely striking this Bradley. I think that there's like a disconnect between the operators on the ground and whoever edited the video. That's just where I'd go with that. All right. This is one of the most haunting videos, you know. It's a Russian perspective video. This is one of the videos that we put into the top videos of the week. And Josh blogged this one on the site for us. And what he said is really profound, right? Is we're looking at Russians on this. But this is going to be a shared experience. We've talked about it. We talked about it with Wayne on the Funker 530 podcast. We've talked about it here. You've probably heard others talk about it. The sound of these things is ultimately it's just terrifying. At any point, one of these can just show up in your lap.
Она по-любому бабахнет, потому что на батарейке стоит. Поэтому... Ты еще хочешь на дизеле ехать?
Ну.
So I didn't want to talk over this, but listen to that beeping sound. I'm going to take you back to earlier in the video and show you what that is. That gives me chills.
Давай. Стартуем тогда?
Да.
Просто сейчас тебе не дадут. Сейчас не то немножко
All
времени.
right, we're going to pause here. I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the video.
Ну тут да, тут так. Видишь? Но они постоянно.
So that's what that beeping is right there in his hand. And that's some form of like a spectrum analyzer, you know, a piece of kit that is, it's effectively an early warning system for drones. That's what was beeping the entire time. So in this video, the setup that you're seeing here is he is looking at it and saying effectively, hey, we got drones coming this way. We better get the fuck down. That's what you're seeing and what you're hearing.
Потому что это такая зона.
FPV, see that? Did you see it on the screen? You might have missed it. There you are. All right, coming back up. We have one more video before I have one more video. I'd like to introduce you, if you aren't already familiar, to Ivan Dome. Like Iron Dome.
Хуярь, хуярь!
He just shot down a cruise missile with a Madus. So this guy's done this before, and he, if I understand correctly, I don't know, maybe somebody was just making a joke, but if he doesn't call himself Ivan Dome, he absolutely needs to.
Збив! 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 Хуярь, хуярь! Збив!
Here's the thing. He's done it before. So check this out. That's not the first time this has happened. Again, if I understand correctly, he calls himself Ivan Dome, and I think it's fitting and funny. Ivan Dome, everybody. Well, that's going to be the last. Well, I have one more video. I always have one more video for you. Always. Always one more. Thanks very much for being here, guys. You know, this stream is not meant to be some overly produced, high op tempo, you know, talking point rich stream, right? I don't want it to be. And if that's boring to you, if the presentation of the information in the way that it has been is boring, all of this footage is available on the website anyway. Right. What it's ultimately here for is a place for us to discuss it. Right. It was always meant to be a discussion. In the future, I'll probably get back to doing a few more analytical type videos. Right. We'll have more in-depth discussions once we resume the podcast that's coming up, where I'll share more of my opinion. And I share plenty of that over on the other stream that we're about to go to. So if you're really, truly interested in how I feel about whatever war you want to talk about, stick around after this stream. The chat will redirect you over to the follow-up. But this show is supposed to very specifically focus on the footage. Now, that can be placative. Is that a word? That can be almost a way of playing both sides of the fence, if you look at it that way. And it's really tough because I don't want to do that as an individual, personally. I have my personal takes on what my measurement of right looks like. But as a combat footage archive, somebody has to separate emotionally from the presentation of this footage. A lot of live streams are actively showing you footage. We are doing so as the hopeful forever archive of combat footage. And sticking with that mission is something that matters very, very much to me. Personally, if I do personal videos on things, that's where we can talk a little bit more about the analysis, how my, where the objectivity intersects with my bias a little bit more. But here, we have to make sure that we are doing justice to the Funker 530 mission. It should be the place that everybody goes to find, regardless of where they live, to find footage of the 9M22S or the Apache or the Alligator. Ultimately, we are an archive, an encyclopedia of videos. And in an official capacity on Funker 530's YouTube, I will continue to present things as objectively as humanly possible. This is not going to always be, and I will piss off 100% of you in the process in pursuit of me doing that. I appreciate you understanding that, and if you don't understand that, you can kick rocks. That's fine, because you don't fully understand what I'm trying to do here. But one more video for you. Here's the thing. This is probably a feature that looks like a bug. I can't be 100% certain on that. But I don't know. You tell me whether or not this is a feature or a bug. I'm going to head over to the other stream. I'm going to drink a bunch of bourbon. Not too much because I got to get up in the morning with my kid. She's got a soccer tournament to get to. But good night. Go be great and stay informed. Fuck, dude. Imagine being this guy. Imagine being this guy. Yikes, bro. Like, that's not even an RPG. That's like a Strela or maybe Stinger. It's a man-pad, man-portable air defense system. Like, holy wow, man. There's no sound to this, just so you know. What color are his pants? Perfect. He's good, guys. Good night.